G'day guys. We have got one more Sunday gathering at 4 p.m. This coming Sunday, the 30th, will be our final 4 p.m. gathering before we transition and make a move to two gatherings, 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. We had our meetings last Sunday before and after church to try to plan and prepare and pray for the move. And I thought I'd bring to you a bit of a summary of what we covered in those meetings, particularly for those of you who weren't able to make it. I'm going to start off with a bit of an illustration which we used during the gathering there. I've got a planter box here next to me and I've got a pot plant here in my hand. Now, to explain why we're making a move from one service to two services, you're going to need to use your imagination. We're moving basically from a pot plant to a planter box. One plant to two plants. This is what we're going to do. So I want you to picture for a minute a plant in this pot plant that's been growing, and this plant is Anchor Church. And for the first 3 years of Anchor Church's life, it started out as quite a small little plant in a pretty big pot plant. But in 3 years, it's grown so that by God's grace, it's luscious and it's green and it's overflowing out of this pot plant. And it's got to the point where, for a number of reasons, it's actually constrained now by the pot, and the root system is kind of contained. So it's going to limit the amount of gospel growth that can continue to happen through Anchor Church. So we've made a decision that we're going to move this one plant into a different kind of configuration. And what we're going to do, and if you've ever done this before as a gardener, you got to get the plant out of here. Maybe you want to picture this plant as like a ginger plant. That's got like a root ball system, because what we're going to do, and it involves a little bit of challenge and hardship, and we're bracing ourselves for it, is you pretty much got to tip it upside down a little bit, and we've got to wiggle this plant out and see its root system constrained in there. And then what we're going to do, and here's what we're doing at the moment, with this root ball system, we're actually got to tease it apart so that we end up with two plants. And you can do that more easily with some plants than others. Like, that's why I say ginger, because someone mentioned on Sunday that ginger plants have this root ball system that can be lovingly tickled apart to form two ginger plants. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get these two ginger plants and we're going to plant them in this planter box, which is one box, still one church, but we're moving to being two plants in this box. And the whole reason for that is to make space for more growth. And you can imagine this is why you do that with plants. You take them out of a place where they're constricted and you put them into the place where their roots have got more space to grow, so that in time it can support more growth in the branches, in the leaves and all that kind of stuff. And so here's what we're looking at. We're going to take two plants, smaller ones, pop them in here, and then tend to them and love them and care for them, and pray that God, by his sovereign plans, would use our efforts to actually grow again his church. So does that help? It's kind of an illustration we played with during the meetings to explain what we're doing. And hopefully that picture helps you. We're still going to be one church in one planter box, but two new little plants that have now got more space to grow, put down roots, and again produce gospel growth. So that's what we're doing. Hopefully that little illustration helps you. Now, what to expect when we make this move? A couple of things. First of all, as we get indications from all the adults in Anchor who call Anchor homes, about 130 adults who would say they're part of the core of Anchor, this is their church. And from that 130, we're getting indication that looks like it's going to be about a 50-50 movement, which it's good to hear. Now, I'm sure there'll be movement around after that, but indications show that about 50-50, which is, we're really excited about that, because what that means is we've got a good chunk of adults in both congregations helping it kick off, and we've got a good amount of space at both congregations for things to grow, which is really good. Now, as you might imagine, at the 10 a.m, on top of adults, you've got kids as well. And so 10 a.m. will probably feel a bit larger, and you've got people from 5 p.m. coming to serve in kids as well, so there'll be a few more people around. But once the sermon starts, you're working with about the same number of adults. So that's how things will kick off. and then we'll see how it goes from there. But you might imagine that what we're doing here is we're trying to make the kind of space that would allow things to continue to grow for not just for the next 6 months, but for the next 3 years. So we're wanting to make a fair bit of space. And if we do get a 50-50 movement of adults, it does make a fair bit of space at both, which is ideal. Second thing, what to expect once we make this move. If you've ever done this with a plant before, you've repotted it, or you've pulled it apart and put it. Usually, when you first do it, the thing wilts a little bit, and you can find yourself concerned that the thing's going to die and it's not going to work. I actually think that's an interesting little dynamic that could help us, because when we first make this move, we may even have a few weeks, I think, where you look around and you think, oh, where is everyone? And you wonder, is this going to work? I reckon there'll be a few weeks like that. So you can kind of prepare yourself for that. And here's what I'd say is, don't panic. Give it time. It takes a little while for new things to settle in. And in the planting illustration, usually what's happening first is the plant is sending all its energy to the root system. It's trying to re-establish its roots, and sometimes it throws a few branches off in order to do that. But it does that so that it then can support growth as it goes on. And so when we first move, we might have some moments, who knows, we might not, might just, feel fine, but we might have some moments where we think, oh, is it working? Give it time. Don't panic. I reckon it'll be in like 6 months, 9 months, 12 months that we'll see how this has gone. So don't be too concerned right initially. We need to re-establish the roots of 2 new gatherings. That'll take a bit of time. Third thing, what to expect is this. 2 new gatherings, but so that you know, the same leadership over both. So the same staff and leaders of Anchor Church will have equal concern for both gatherings and be at both gatherings. Yep. And have heart for and concern for dynamics at both gatherings. Just to assure you of that one. It'll be the same preaching at both gatherings. So if someone's going to preach, they preach both. So you get the same thing at both. The same notices in regards to the same all-in events that we're doing together, like baptisms and weekend away and Christmas and Easter, there'll be a lot of the same messaging from the front. We want to celebrate things that are happening in each of the gatherings, babies born, things like that. And so MC, and as much as possible, singing the same at both gatherings. You might imagine, though, as we do this movement with adults, we don't end up with the equal amount of adults who are currently serving in the ministry teams at the moment. So some ministry teams need a little bit of help in the other one. And so we'll work all that out. But as much as possible, we're shooting for Anchor as we know it, as close to that as we can at both in all the dynamics. So there you go. Now, in regards to what you can be doing particularly as we make this move, we did some brainstorming at the meeting, which was really under the question of what will help this happen. What can you be thinking about to help this movement? And so we did a whole bunch of brainstorming. What's going to help? Rather than just sitting back and watching to see what can we all be doing proactively and intentionally to make it happen. And at both the meetings, AM and PM, we filled the whiteboard with fantastic ideas and brainstorming about what we can be doing to help. A number of those ideas were in regards to things that can be organised by church to happen, and so we'll be considering all those. But what I've done is I've made a bit of a summary of the things that you can be thinking about as an individual or as a family about what you can be doing to help this happen. And I've come up with a summary that I've got on the whiteboard here. So let me just move the camera around. Does that work now? I've got a bit of a summary here. I think it's 8 things that I want to encourage you to be thinking about. Now, there was so much more on the whiteboard. This is just me picking a couple of those things. Sorry if your ideas don't get made here, because there's lots of other things we're doing as an organised church, but this is things for you to think about as an individual. Let me race through these things, and would you consider these things with us? First of all, be praying. Yep. We have a sovereign God, and we want to pray to him that he would open hearts and so that people would come to know him, that he would give us the strength we need to run this. God is the one who determines the outcome of whether this works or not. So would you be praying? And would you be praying regularly for where we're at as a church? Number two, someone suggested, well, if we ended up with about 60 adults at each, what we really need is everyone to be committed and regular. And that's certainly true. So if I can encourage you to drop your soft reasons for missing church. There's hard reasons when you're just sick as a dog or you're actually away or whatever, but there can be soft reasons for missing church too. Can I encourage you in this season, drop your soft reasons. We need you there. We'll miss you if you're not there. It's the time to be committed and regular as you possibly can. Third thing, be inviting. We've got a fresh opportunity here to invite our friends and family to come to church. And there might be people who you've invited before in the past. Maybe they've come once, maybe they haven't. But here's a fresh opportunity to go back to them and say, hey, things are changing at church. We've now got a 10 a.m. and a 5 p.m. Would you be interested in coming along? And you might even be able to bring a friend or family member to the other congregation that you're not usually attending if that works best for them. So fresh opportunity, be inviting. Fourthly, be serving. One thing everyone kind of acknowledged is that to do something like this as a church, the best chance of it working is if it's all hands on deck, if we're all on board, and as many of us as possible step up as we can. It's going to take all of us here to make this happen. So as much capacity as God's given you, would you consider using it as you currently are, or possibly even stepping up in some way to serve more in the area you're already serving in, or possibly serve in another area? And a number of people are considering that, and some people have said yes to that, hopefully with no pressure, but just knowing the need and the opportunity here. It might even be that you can serve in some way at the other congregation that you're not attending every week in some way. Would you consider that? Because that's going to help. Fourthly, be huddling. So with a smaller mob at each congregation, rather than spreading out and feeling really sparse, we kind of thought, let's bring it in a bit. Let's consider where we sit in church, and let's huddle a little bit and make a bit of a warm vibe, so we're close to each other, and so we can sing and kind of hear each other's voices. So think about where you sit in church, and rather than up the back and off to the side, come forward, bring it in as much as you're able. I know you can't always pull it off, but as much as you're able, let's bring it in so that we can, in this early season, feel a bit of warmth. Whatever the next, number 6 or whatever, be welcoming. With a smaller crowd, it's easier to spot new faces. So would you lift your head as you're walking into church and see who else is walking in? When you go to sit down, would you look around? During the break, in the middle, and after church, would you, as you're able, lift your head, look around, spot someone who's new? It'll be easier. Spot someone who's new and, sidle over alongside them and say hello. It makes a huge difference. And if you bring a friend along to church, you know how awesome it is when someone else comes up and says hello to your friend. So be welcoming. Let's all do this. Be connecting. A lot of people come up with ideas, which is really good in regards to, we need to try to reconnect, which is partly to re-establish the root ball system for each of these plants, build relationships, get to know each other and connect with each other. There's things we want to try and do formally as a church, but would you individually consider taking the initiative to do what you can? Would you think about who you could hang out with after church? Make plans before church to actually what you're going to do after church and who you might be able to invite to come and do that with you. As much as you can, make some plans to hang out and connect with people from your congregation, and share meals together as you're able, and invite people to come and do that with you. Finally, be concerned beyond, which is the concept of, rather than having an us versus them competitive thing going on between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m, let's have equal concern for each other. Let's be just as concerned for what's happening in the other congregation that you don't always attend, at least in the way you pray, but even possibly in the way you get to serve. and do things for the other congregation. Let's celebrate what's happening in each congregation. Let's grow in our heart rather than being divided in our hearts. Let's be warm and unified. We're one church, 2 time slots. Let's work together and be in partnership together. So there you go. There's a bunch of things that I want to encourage you as an individual and as a family to be thinking about. And if you can kick into a couple of these things, and many of us can, it's really going to help. And together we're going to be able to make this transition in a way that is as positive as possible and helpful as possible. And looking forward to the move, guys. So this Sunday, final 4 p.m. gathering. Let that settle in your heart and do everything you can to prepare for this move. Let's do this together. I love you guys. God's got us. Let's trust his intention for us in this. Let's enjoy this time together. Alrighty, see you later.